Hi guys! So in today's video, we're going to talk about everything I love about UChicago. Now, this video is something that I'm pretty excited for. So again, with the disclaimer that my experiences and my feelings are not representative of UChicago, but they're still valid. Alright, so let's move on to the very first point, and this time I'm using my phone because my iPad is currently uploading another video. The first one is that whenever I talk to anybody from UChicago, I always feel so inspired in a really positive way. When I talk to people on like the quad or just like chilling in the reg or catch up with friends that I haven't met with in a long time, they're always doing something new. And everyone kind of like complains about how much work it is, but it's also really obvious that we all kind of enjoy the grind. Part of it is because we know after we're done, we're gonna have this like amazing sense of accomplishment, but also just the professors are amazing, the support, the resources, the administrative staff, the advisors are all really supportive, and like it doesn't matter what major you're in. Like for example, as an econ major, I of course have resources to like the business and the finance advisors and all of that, but if you're like a poli-sci major, if you're a philosophy major, if you're a creative writing major, and you want to book an appointment with any of these advisors, you can go ahead and do that and they'll hop on like a one-on-one 30-minute like call or meeting with you. And I just think that every time I see someone at the beginning of school year or in the middle or in the after the school term, I feel that we just kind of know where we're at. And even if you don't know where you're at and you don't really have your shit together, you still kind of have like a positive outlook, because at the very least you're doing your classes or you're doing somewhat of your classes, and throughout that process you kind of get to know a little bit better what you like and what you don't like, and you get to know about yourself. So I know after doing the core, well, most of the core, I realized that I didn't really like poli-sci that much, because what I wanted to learn more was less political science theory but rather more comparative politics. So me taking power really helped me like realize that, but I still had so much fun in the class and I met some of my really good friends through that class. So yeah, every time I hear someone talk, it's always in quite like a well-mannered and very like thought-provoking way, be it like a random conversation or classroom conversations. And I think that's just something that's reflective of not only the type of people that are at UChicago, but also just the type of people that like are more outspoken. And even the ones that are more introverted or more quiet, if you like are stuck on some problem in the reg, I've had many times where I've just been like struggling alone at my desk and someone will be passing by or someone will be sitting next to me doing the same problem, and they'll just look over and they'll be like, oh, I've been in that class before, oh, I like did that class before, do you like want my help, do you like want me to like teach you how to do it, do you want my old notes? And the amount of times I've been saved by strangers is actually amazing. And yeah, that's just something, like I like being on campus. I like being in buildings, like talking to people. It just serves as a constant reminder as to like why I came to this university, because everyone on campus is just very like inspiring to me. And yeah, it makes me feel more motivated and aspirational as well. The next point is UChicago solidarity. So I kind of touched on this previously in the last video about how individual communities within UChicago I feel like quite isolated, but I think UChicago as a whole is very unified and there's a very strong sense of like solidarity. It's not so much a sense of like identity such as like we are like ferocious or fierce or we are like insert some adjective, but rather it's a sense that we all know that we're very like smart people and we all have imposter syndrome, and we are all like went through the same like core that we often like joke about and bash and roast, but ultimately we're all kind of grateful for it. And if you're not, then you know through that learning experience you found out that you don't like certain subjects and you like other subjects. And I feel like especially after talking to seniors or graduates of UChicago, it's always a sense of like this was quite painful, especially you know during the finals week when there's just a lot of work. As is for other universities, there's just a lot of work, but after you go through it, there's so many other students that like will just like yell on the quad, or I remember there's like the midnight scream where you just like scream all your frustrations into the air, and there's just a strong sense of like UChicago identity. If I wear a UChicago sweatshirt at the Ojai airport, you know, people will like come up to me and be like, hey, I'm an alumni there, or hey, my son goes there, or hey, my daughter goes there, or like I've had someone tell me, oh, my daughter-in-law goes there, or like went there, and I was like, nice. I feel like there's a stronger community that I can tap into, and that when I finally graduate, I feel like I'll be entering this little community that's really spread out. And as an econ major especially, you don't find that many UChicago people in the finance like world as of right now. Like I remember walking into this like super day interview and I was the only UChicago person there. There were like 10 people in the room and I was the only UChicago person there, and there were 9 other Wharton kids or like UPenn kids, and I was just sitting there like, hi everybody, I belong here. And the funny part was the supervisor at that meeting was actually a UChicago alum. So I reached out to her after meeting. I was like, hi, I'm also from UChicago. But yeah, anyhow, so just whenever you see someone in a field, even though UChicago like maybe doesn't like populate that field, such as finance, but whenever you do find someone in that field who also graduated from UChicago, there's definitely an immediate sense of like, oh yeah, I got you. Let me spare a couple minutes to like talk to you. What's been going on? How's Dean Boyer doing? What our classes are new? Is it still pre-professional? Are the same stereotypes, the same clubs still there? And yeah, it's just a really strong sense of community as a school. And I really like that. I was really worried about that coming in because I was like, oh, everyone seems to hate UChicago and don't like UChicago. But after coming here, I realized that roasting UChicago and hating on UChicago is like our way of being vocal and our way of like being self-deprecating while still being in this school. So yeah. The third thing is kind of leading off to the last point, but that is UChicago's reputation is invaluable. Like, it is rock solid. So my dad obviously works and hires people for his company, and he will like interview a lot of kids from abroad, and sometimes he'll see like, oh, Harvard or Brown or like any other school, not hitting on specific schools, but just a lot of different schools. And there will always be part of the interview that's more of like a testing the waters, like seeing how much you really know, seeing like how true your like 4.0 perfect GPA is. But for UChicago, that has never happened to me, and I've heard from other people, just like career advancement as well, that this never happens to UChicago students because everyone, especially employers in the US, know that UChicago is a super difficult school, and that anyone who survives UChicago, even if your GPA is like not really high, that it still is a really high standard of education. That means your problem solving skills are amazing, your critical thinking skills are amazing, and more importantly, you have like that like drive and grind and that ability to just do whatever it is you set your mind to. And that really is invaluable, because when you're looking for a job, or when you're communicating with people, when you're talking to people, I feel like UChicago is a really proud and solid brand that just, if I say I'm from UChicago, people immediately think that like, oh, you must be really like smart and hardworking. Instead of, I know that at least when my friends, like I have a friend from Columbia, and sometimes when they say, oh, I'm an econ major from Columbia, people might assume, oh, you're rich, or like you really like New York City, and of course you know that you're really smart and prestigious, but there always seems to be some other like influence to that, and at least for UChicago, I've never felt it, and I don't think it's really prevalent. Like, I just don't think people associate like people who like tend to be more like unmotivated and just like be able to like meander their way through college through UChicago, because you really can't. Right? It's either you stick it out and you find something of yourself, or you try to do something, it fails, you switch to another major, or you switch a couple majors, or you switch a lot of majors, and ultimately you'll find something that you like and that you're willing to put in that work for. So regardless of what it is, everyone kind of has gone through that process. And yeah, I really like that sense of like credibility that comes with UChicago's name. I feel like whenever I walk into an interview or I'm discussing someone with alumni from other schools, whenever I say I'm from UChicago, there's definitely a sense of respect there. And I just really like that. Like, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, because I'm not saying that like your school isn't as credible. I'm just saying that as a UChicago student, that gives me like a lot of assurance. That's my little rant about that. But yeah, that's definitely something that I feel like when you're at UChicago, you don't really think about, but once you step outside of UChicago, you're talking to someone who's not UChicago, you feel that quite strongly, and I really like that. The next one is resources. UChicago has so many resources. We don't have a lot of students on campus. We have a decently large endowment, but because the university is currently on a trend to become more like pre-professional and to have more pre-professional resources available for students, there are so many opportunities around campus. Like, for example, if you want to do like lab research, or if you're interested in like taking up like a research assistant position, or in some sort of like research like teaching assistant, there are more opportunities and spots that are open than there are students to fill them. And of course, the most like prestigious spots are always going to be very competitive, because that's just the way it is, but you never have to worry about not having an opportunity, or not having a job, or not having an internship. It's just about, you know, like what standard you hold yourself to. So of course for the econ major, for like the finance part, it's definitely very competitive, because the big four firms, all of these firms are very competitive, and everyone wants to get into them, not just UChicago, but everyone in the country. And UChicago is a target school for consulting firms, for like big finance firms. If you're interested in that kind of thing, we are a target school. But I mean, there are many hardworking people at UChicago, and so it is very difficult for you to kind of like get those positions. But I mean, that's not to be confused with not being able to get an internship at all. Like most people I know have some sort of an internship, whether it be on campus, around campus, or even just like a short externship or job opportunity. So UChicago has this whole thing that's called like treks and job shadowing, and these are not specific to econ majors. You can be absolutely any major. You can be a first year with no major and still go on these treks, and they're completely paid for. And by the way, if you're paying for them, literally just sign up for the financial aid form and UChicago will pay for it for you. Yeah, I'm not on financial aid to study, but I do like cover my own living expenses and things through college. So when I was going on a trek or taking an internship in Jakarta/Beijing last summer, I applied for a grant and UChicago gave me $5,000 for the last one and paid for my trip, like round trip and stay for the first one. So they do that for you. And there are more treks and job shadowing positions than there are students to fill them. I found that people who apply to like 2 or 3 or more treks, because I think there are like 7 or 8, so different locations at like Paris, London, Glasgow. Oh my god, there's so many places. I feel like I can't remember any off the top of my head, but there are a lot of different places if you look them up, and they rotate each year. And I know a lot of people who like apply to 3 or more and they get placed in one of them. You know, maybe it's not your top choice, but I mean in that case just apply next year or reach out to your career advisor person and always look out for opportunities, because I remember I did that for my job shadowing program and I ended up being placed on 2 different ones just because I was really vocal about it and someone dropped out of theirs. And so they were like, oh, you know, it's tomorrow, we need to find someone who can like immediately fill the spot. You happen to be in the same city, would you like it? I was like, sure. And that's how I got 2 job shadowing positions in New York. But yeah, UChicago is just quite flexible and there's so many resources available for you. I mean, I only covered really the business side of it, but another thing is, for example, I'm an econ major, but I did take an art core, and afterwards I really liked like the filming, the equipment, the like audio recording, videography part of it, obviously, because that inspired me to get a new camera. And any major on campus can apply and just take a short quiz and go to an info session about just like camera safety. And anyone can have access to the very expensive like equipment filled cage of like 3D printers, of like the Adobe suite, of all these like DSLR equipment that they just loan out to students. And of course you can't damage it, but they just loan it out for a couple days and you can just return it anytime you like. And I just find that this kind of like resource and feeling that you can achieve anything that's within limits on campus is just something that not a lot of universities have, especially since I was considering the UK and UChicago. I know for a fact that in the UK I would not have been able to get so many opportunities and so many just different types of resources. And so that's something I really like about UChicago. It's not really UChicago specific because I know a lot of colleges also have these, but I do feel like at UChicago there's a wider sense of, doesn't matter if you're a math major or a STEM major, if you like art, go do this. If you like music, go do this. We have all the recording rooms and studios available for you. I like that a lot. I like the idea of being able to have diverse interests and then the university having a lot of resources to back that up. The last one that I have is UChicago as a campus is very vocal. Sometimes that leads to conflict. But I feel like we all kind of knew this going into UChicago, so it's not a very negative sort of like butting heads kind of conflict, but it's more just having disagreements and talking about things that are very politically relevant, and you will always find someone willing to listen to another perspective at UChicago, and I think that's so valuable. I forgot to cover this in the video, but for example, there's like a Republican society at UChicago, and I have friends who are just like very raging liberal Democrats, and they will still sign up and be a part of that society just because they want to hear another opinion and they want to hear like the other side of the story. And that's not by any case like an isolated case. Like I know a lot of situations where people will actively reach out to other parts of campus just to hear their thoughts, and not even just to dare to like incite conflict or like be negative about it, but honestly just to learn. For example, we have our annual, or is it quarterly or bi-quarterly, student government elections, and every time those roll around, there's always a lot of debate on campus about like which party do you support, which party did better in their response, the different party policies, and people just seem to care a lot, and I like that. I know for a fact that whenever it's like recruiting season, everyone is talking about it. Like there's no sense of like competition behind your back. The competition is very upfront and very friendly. I will actively remind people like, hey, I know you're interested in this firm. Don't forget there's an info session there. Probably arrive 10 minutes early if you want to like network and wear this because there's a dress code. And people will tell me, oh yeah, I recorded the PPT for like this specific firm's like little recruiting spiel. Would you like it? And I'm like, oh, sure, like I couldn't make it because of class, like that would be so nice, right? And I don't feel like this is just specific to econ, because I did dabble into like pre-med for a little bit and pre-law for a little bit, and all of these like hyper competitive majors are all so openly competitive and like openly friendly. Like I remember just popping into this like pre-med laboratory like internship section where they were talking about all the different professors and who's professors, like internships you should go for and like which lab positions you should like try to network and get. And I remember sitting there and someone beside me who's like one of the moderators was just like, oh, you look confused, I haven't seen you around here before. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm actually like econ major, but I'm thinking of maybe doing pre-med. And they were like, okay, let me help you out. So take this class and go to this professor and like do this and like try to do this in this specific time. And I was just like, why are you telling me this information? Like, isn't it making me more competitive? And they were like, well, yes, but also like no one should just not have the information just because they like came in late or anything like that. So they retry to level the playing field as much as possible and just, you know, take it from there. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, that's fine. There are many other avenues and opportunities for you. I love that about UChicago, and I feel like that's the best part about being in a school that's very liberal artsy, but also very pre-professional, because it's not a life or death situation if you don't get that internship, which I feel like people at Penn or Columbia, at least the people I've spoken to there, are very like, oh my god, I must get this internship, otherwise like my career will be ruined, my like life at UChicago will be ruined, I'll get so much clout if I do this. And that's just not the case at UChicago. Like, it's very pre-professional in some ways, but it's also very chill in others, and I really like the mix of the two. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was somewhat helpful. I know some things that I said may seem like contradictory to like my last video, but at least from my perspective it really isn't, because there are many types of people on campus. And like the part about competition that I'm just gonna address really quickly, right? If you're someone who like hates all form of competition, going to UChicago probably isn't your best option. Or for that matter of fact, going to any sort of like top college, because students who are able to get into top colleges probably were competitive in high school, like the majority of them, and so there's no reason to think they won't be in college. But at least for me, the reason why I didn't apply to like Penn and Columbia, this is something I mentioned previously, is because I didn't want an environment where that competition was really negative and really like weighing me down and really made me feel like out of place and really pressurized all the time. And that's why I picked UChicago, because there is competition for sure. There's academic competition, there's career competition. Socially, not so much, but overall, I just think that it's a really healthy sort of motivational sense of competitiveness, and I personally quite like that. So yeah, now that's honestly it for me for this video. The next one's gonna be kind of fun of a video. I bought a lot of stuff during quarantine, both like camera, tech, laptop, but also like clothing and beauty products. So if you're interested in watching that, stay tuned, because that will be my next video up. And yeah, I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye!